Now, while you're standing a moment, I'm going to teach this lesson sitting down, and more than likely, I'll stand up some. But I can hardly wait to give you the gift in an envelope right here that you're going to get at the end of the service when you walk out. Greeters will be there at the doors to give this to you, and it's very important. You'll know what I'm talking about when you leave today. I'll tell you more about it later. Let me switch over to another mic. It's there. Now, this is the scripture that I choose to use today from Matthew 4:18. Now, I want you to hear, this is in the life of Jesus. It's by the Sea of Galilee in Tiberias. It's at Galilee. Warm weather, even now. Beautiful weather in February, March, December. Hot springs are there. Jesus made his headquarters there. And one day he was walking on the seashore. And he was walking by that Sea of Galilee. He saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and Andrew his brother. They were casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Look, they immediately, no thought about it, left their nets and followed him. Going on from there, at the same place, he saw two other brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, in the boat with Zebedee, their father, mending their nets. He called them, and immediately James and John left the boat and their father and followed Jesus. John was the one, you know, that wrote Revelation, and John 1, John 2, John 3, and the Gospel of John. He just called them, and they immediately went. Now, this is what I'm going to use as a basis for just giving you, this is not a preaching, okay? Look, I know that there are a lot of visitors here. I know that. I really love you being here. And there are some whom I have not seen for a long time. Let me just give you how we do names, okay? Shamdasani, are you here today? Way back over here, look. So you remember names like Mr. and Mrs. Wonderful couple. Connected with our school too, and we have history, don't we, with your young brother, I believe it was, a relative whom I buried many years ago, a number of years ago. But welcome to the service, and all of you who are guests of ours, and you've come back to visit with your children, the college students. I saw Jared, I saw several others. We had some this morning in the first service. It's just great to have you. I just can't find all of you, and that's the thing. See a couple of my grandchildren here visiting from Raleigh with Mama, Suzanne, that's Todd's wife, and Todd has already called me from down in Mississippi and said, "Dad, I am so sorry that I could not make it. You've set a good example for me." Boy, oh boy. I want to try to make it through this today, not for the leg, that hurts too, but I'm going to try to make it with my sentiment the way it is. And I want you to listen, because I want to talk to dads and mamas and children. If you just give me a little bit of time, okay? And the Lord's going to share something with you in the next 30, 35 minutes. You can be seated. Thank you. Since it's just a talking one, let me just sit here, and don't mistake me for Danny DeVito, because I'm this much shorter, okay? I'll get my head shaved and I could be like him, okay? This boy came home from college. When he came back, he didn't look like he did when he went. Does anybody ever? And when he came back, he had left a picture of a preppy. But when he came back, he had his hair cut in a crazy way, No color that he had on matched. He had a ring in his nose and in his ear. And when he came down the stairs, Daddy saw him and said, "Son, it's really good to have you home, but you really look like an idiot." At that point, that dad's daddy was forced to live with them, and he came walking up, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "You know, son, you look just like your daddy did when he came home the first time." Dads come across in strange ways. I remember my times at Tokay. You know, the kids had no problems, but it was the mamas who'd say, "Good job, hit it, the referee's blind, the umpire can't count." It's tough. And now they've really gotten bad because they think that children are the best in the world, and they are, especially if they're grandchildren. I remember one of the little huddles, Coach had them in there looking up at those hats, you know, and he said, "Now, kids, I want you to know something. We got a rule here. We don't lose tempers. Is that right?" "Yes, sir, Coach." He said, "We don't say dirty four-letter words. Is that right?" "Yes, sir, Coach." He said, "We don't give any bad gestures to anybody out there on the field. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir, Coach." "Is anything else?" "No, that's it. You got all that?" "Yeah." And the coach said, "Now, you think you can go home and get that over to your daddy and your mama?" There's nothing wrong with kids. It's just that the parents bring it out. And it seems that in these days, 20 and 30 years later, that it's really gotten bad because they think that the children can do no wrong. One man told me, he said, "Listen, I never felt so out of touch in all my life." He said, "I don't know." He said, "I've got cable TV." He said, "I've got 4 phones in my house." He said, "I got a cellular phone in my car. I've got a pocket phone, an iPhone in my pocket. I've got a fax machine and a GPS, listen, in my car now." He said, "I've got every kind of thing that you can dream of having." And my daughter told me the other day, she said, "Daddy, you just are out of touch." It's amazing what kids think of us, how that goes right down to us. I know we all have our memories of our dads. By the way, your memories are either good or bad. You hardly remember the stuff in between. It's the way it is with people in the hospital, nurses. It's the way it is with teachers. Try to remember, don't try to do too much of it here, but you remember the good teachers and you remember the poor teachers. You don't remember the ones in between. And when it comes to the things that you remember about your daddy, probably you remember the good stuff or the bad stuff. Some of you have many bad memories. To me, they were good memories. You remember fishing trips, hunting trips, ball games, maybe silly stories. I remember my dad's singing. I remember his poetry that he wrote, and he gave me poems that I still have on the inside of me, and limericks. He loved limericks, and I've still got some of them, and some of them I could give to you, but I'm not going to do it today. I've heard guys talk. I heard the Faircloth boys, Perry and his brothers, tell me about Grandpa Lim. He was 68 when he died. I buried him. He was a member of another church, but Brother Lim was a real man of 6'8", a big, strong guy, a deacon in the church where he went. But he loved to fish. And they took him fishing down to was it out close to your Black River? Black River. One day, Daddy Lim was sitting there. They've given me permission to tell this story. Dad Lim, you gotta hear this. That's where Dad Lim came from. Dad Lim this and Dad Lim. Daddy Lim was sitting on the end of the boat, reeling them in just like this. And Perry looked at him, or Junior, or one of the boys said, Papa, said, we think you ought to move from that end of the boat up here. Papa didn't move. And a little bit later said, Papa, we think you ought to move up here on this side. Just move on up, Papa. Move carefully and quietly. Papa didn't move. Papa just kept throwing them out. Papa to do this. And finally, I think it was the late Junior, his brother, looked up at him and said, Papa, he said, we want to tell you there's a Cotton Mountain moccasin right between your legs right now. We believe you ought to move. He said, Daddy moved. I want to tell you further the story, since neither one of them is here to defend themselves. They were fishing on the Black River. The boys were standing over here on the bank. They came to a log, and Daddy was making that boat rev up. And they said, Daddy, we're going to have to move the tree. He said, let me put y'all out. I'm going to show you how we're going to get over the tree. He said, Daddy, we better not do that. Daddy Lim said, we can do that. Y'all stand over and watch me. And they stood over and they watched him. And he got up the river and got about 100, 200 feet and hit that boat with everything it had, low and medium and high. And everything it had said, watch me now, I'm going to jump it. Just like they do on TV. And he hit that thing and then pulled on that seat with that 6'8" frame, and he hit that limb. And limb and the paddle and everything else went forward, and the boat stopped. And he he went like a trajectory way out about 20 or 30 feet and was in the water. And here comes this 6'8" guy to the top. And he looks over and they're laughing. He said, I know what you're doing over there on the back. He said, you better not, number one, tell anybody. And he said, if any one of you laugh at me, you're going to get a certain part of your anatomy beat real good. I'm not sure if he said it like a certain part of your anatomy. I said, did you laugh? He said, we had to turn around and laugh, but it was the funniest thing we ever saw, and we remember that. You remember things that your dad did. I guess we all remember things they say and things they do. I remember things from my dad. I remember when I was 4 years old, my daddy could do anything, and I'd brag about it. I said, man, this guy's got it. At 7 years old, Dad knew a lot. I'm telling you, Don, Dad knew a whole lot. At 8 years old, Daddy doesn't know quite everything. At 12 years old, well, naturally, they said, Father knows best on television. You remember that program? And I said, well, exactly, Father doesn't exactly know best and doesn't exactly know all. And when I became 14, Daddy, Father, he was hopelessly old-fashioned. I didn't want him going with me anywhere, taking me anywhere, or doing anything. At 25 years old, at 25 years old, he knows a little bit about it, but not much. At 30 years old, it was amazing how wise he got in the last few years. At 35 years of age that I am now, we need to find out what Daddy thinks about it. At 50 years of age, this is what I said. I wonder what Daddy thinks about it. And at 60 years of age, I look back on it and I think that my daddy knew something about everything. And at 65, I'll stop it there. Here's what I've said many times. I'd give everything that I've got. Everything. If I could just bring him back and talk to him 5 minutes. One more time. But money can't buy back your youth when you're old. And all the boats and cars and all the degrees and everything else that you get, my friend, will never bring your father back or your mother back or your child back. That's why you have to get what you can right now as you go through life. You know what I found? Now, this is going to be hard for me to do for you. There's no school that teaches you how to be a good dad. Two or 3 years passed by, and Todd came into this world. I looked into that window. They didn't let you see them when they had the babies. They said, take the newspaper, go sit down, drink a cup of coffee, and we'll come out with the news in a little while. They did not let you see them. When she went into the hospital, she was gone by herself. Now they let you there, so you say, breathe hard, honey, breathe in, and all that stuff. But we had to just sit out there and wait. When I looked in the window to see that baby, and they said, this is him. I said, no, which one? And it's not him. They said, yeah, it's him. I said, it's that one. They said, no, it's this one right here. He had a flat nose. He had scars on his head. His head was shaped like this. I said, oh, God, he's deformed. God, what am I going to do? And then Dr. Morrison, I believe, came out and said, your boy's going to be all right. It's just what happens when you have a baby. Didn't they tell you that? I said, nobody ever told me anything about having a baby. And furthermore, nobody ever told me anything about how to be a father. Because he came along actually because even before anybody ever told me how to be a husband. They don't offer you education on that. English 325 is fine. Shakespeare and Macbeth and Julius Caesar and all of these, yeah. But they don't ever tell you how to be a father. And they don't tell you how to be a husband. I found this out. There's any man here who's got the power probably to sire a child and bring one into this world. But not everybody can learn to be a father. You know, I believe that anybody can have a child. But it's very hard for a child to have a father. Reason being, we get so caught up in everything else, and we think that in our training is of making the money and of winning the bread and doing all these things, and we forget about those little things that come along. And we want to fuss, and we want to complain. So Daddy, a corporate man, took his little boy and said, I want to take you out. We're going to go fishing, son. Will we catch anything, Daddy? I believe we will, son. And they went out and they sat an hour and didn't even get a bite. They sat 2 hours, didn't even get a nibble. They sat for 4 hours and hadn't caught anything. And Dad said, well, son, we got to go. Daddy's got things to do this afternoon. I got to go and get back in the saddle again, son. And they packed up and they left. Daddy went back to his office and he wrote these words in his memo. Went fishing with my son today. Spent 4 hours on the lake. Caught nothing. Didn't get a bite. One of the most wasted days of my life. But that night, he broke his heart. He found in his son's little diary, Daddy took me fishing today. It seemed like only a short while. It was the greatest day that I ever had. You see, your values are different when you get to 30 or 35 or 40 than they are when you're 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 or 12. But dads, you're not going to have those kids but one time in your life. And what you do, you got to make it count with all of your heart. I tell you, I've actually prayed, Lord, why didn't you let me be a husband or a dad like those patriarchs? He said, go ahead, pick one. I said, I picked the first man in the Garden of Eden. I pick Adam. And then I realized that Adam lost his son through death when his older son killed him because of selfishness and hate. And immediately he never saw that son again because they buried him. And he never saw his older son who killed him because he was banished from him away. And he never saw them again. The Bible never mentions him here again being there. I said, Lord, you better let me get somebody else. And so I picked Noah. I said, Lord, this man could fish. He knew water. He knew it. He stayed on the water long enough. Let me pick Noah. He said, all right, look at his sons. And his sons didn't come out too well. After the big deluge and the boat came down and they landed, Daddy grew a vineyard and gave praise to God. And one of the sons came in and laughed at his nakedness. The 3 sons didn't end up really great, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Particularly Ham and his family, according to the scripture. I said, Lord, that's just not good enough. Let me get Samuel's. Let me get Elias and Hophni and Phinehas' daddy. Oh, that was Eli. Take him, son. Go ahead, take him. Then I found out that God said to him, I'm going to curse you for that because you let those sons sin against you and against me in the church, Eli. And I found that I struck out with Eli. So I said, Father, I've got to find somebody. I know, Lord, give me Abraham. He said, take Abram and Abraham. Go ahead, take them. Abram had a child by the name of Isaac. Isaac had one by the name of Jacob, who became Israel. Abraham lied in front of them. He said about his wife, he said, look, he said to the king of the Pharaoh, he said, look, he said, that's my sister, because he was fearing his head. And the man almost took her to be his wife into his harem. He found out and he said, curses you, said, you get out of here, you're cursing this whole camp. It was really his sister, half-sister, but it was his wife too. But he lied. And a lie can get you into a lot of problems. But then along came Isaac, and he lied too, to his father and to his mother, to all of them, especially his father and his brother. And then along came Jacob, and Jacob was the chief of liars. Now look, you can go all the way through the Bible, and you'll never find any one of them that's really a perfect father. Oh, he was a great general. He was a great king. He's still remembered today. Pastor, choose David. I chose David. But his children didn't turn out too well either. You know that. One hung himself in the tree. One tried to wrench the kingdom from his father. One went to Hebron, and he tried to take the kingdom away from his daddy on the sly and wouldn't let him know anything about it. It's tough to raise children because you don't come with any kind of guarantee that you're going to be successful. And you don't come with any plan so that you can be a good daddy. You're going to jump out into that sea of parenthood, and you're going to say, God, you've got to help me, deliver me from this mess that I'm in, and you're going to pray that God will make you a good dad. It's tough to be a good dad because you don't have any training in it. These successful dads are the ones who relate to their children and their homes. The successful dad is the one that says, I'm a true dad, because he teaches them not to just go to church every Sunday. He teaches them all the other things that go along with it, and he takes them to church. I tried to take the scripture that I thought was the best, and actually I'm going cattywampus now against one of my great heroes of the faith. He was a man who sat here in 1985 and walked up the steps. He had 650 radio stations that he appeared on. His name was Morse Ward, better known as C.M. Ward. This guy was a dynamo. I got his sermon that he wrote. And he wrote it about these two boys, James and John, sons of thunder, and Zebedee. And he called it this name. I have it written down in the study down here. It's called Everybody But Daddy. So because I believed him, I chose to pick on dads and pick on Zebedee. But after carefully studying in discipleship and hearing Jesus call these two boys, and they immediately left all and followed him, I thought, Lord, I believe that Zebedee had some really good qualities about him that we might could hitchhike on and pick up, and we could be good. And that I could give to them with notes, and maybe it would help them, even though I didn't know it when I came along with mine. It said, Daddy stayed in the boat. The two boys were called to the ministry of going. The daddy must have been called to making the money so that he could send the money. Because if you write send, S-E-N-D, and on that S put 2 marks to it to make a dollar mark out of it. S-E-N-D. If you wipe out the money, you've also wiped out the send. You would read the word end. Because, my dear friend, it takes money to go out and be a missionary, or to be a pastor, or to be an evangelist. Perhaps Daddy had more foresight than they did. Daddy said, look, I've got hired servants. That's what the book says. He stayed with the hired servants. I don't know if it's a big company or a small company, but everybody knows that if you've got hired servants, people who are working for you, you've got to stay there and work them, or you lose them, one, because they're going to eat too, and they're working. And you can't just up and just vanish in the air. You've got to be ready to take care of it. I know this. I went back and checked it. I found that everywhere I saw the word James and John, practically, I saw the name Zebedee. It says he picked James and John. James first because he was the elder. That was the custom. James and his brother John, Zebedee's children. Why would Matthew leave it out? Matthew put it in. I found that when the mother was there with James and John, it says, and the mother was there with James and John, sons of Zebedee. I found in Matthew 27:56 where it says, there was the mother of Zebedee's children. Look, Zebedee was an important man. I want you to, it's 2,000 years later, but let's call his name. Come on, Zebedee. You can say it out loud, everybody, come on, Zebedee. I don't want you to forget the word Zebedee, because he was a hard-working man. And he knew some things about those hired men, about a business. And he produced two boys, James and John. Now here they were. I don't want you to forget it. They were the sons of thunder. They were hot-headed. Everything I can find about them, they were hot-headed. I think if they'd have had a car, they'd have had a convertible with 4 on the floor. What do you call it, 440? They'd have put the highest test gas in it and then a little of the Lucas into it, and they'd have made sure that thing would spin tires on pavement if they had been here right now. Those guys were something else. As a matter of fact, Jesus called them the sons of thunder. It's got to be for some reason. They were good guys, but they had a hot temper. And by the way, both of them forsook Jesus Christ. But who do you think put them together in the first place? Who do you think made it possible for them to go? Who do you think sent money into Jesus? We don't get any of these things, but I'll guarantee you that behind these two boys in their ministry, and even after Jesus was gone, this man sent money to back up his children. I know daddies that do that. I know mamas that do that, look. They don't give up on you too quickly. You remember, dads, you tell a child what to do until he's 15. Then after that, he tells you what to do. I think Zebedee was one of those fathers who tested with the true test of fatherhood. I don't know what you think a father is, but someone else has said that a father is a thing that is forced to endure childbirth without any anesthetic. And it might have been Paul Harvey, but I want to quote him saying, fathers grow old faster than other people. Why? Because mothers can cry where it shows. Fathers must be strong on the outside while they die on the inside. I quote him one more time, the late Paul Harvey. He said, fathers are what gives daughters away to other men who aren't nearly good enough so they can have grandchildren that are smarter than anybody else's, okay? Think of it. It doesn't matter what somebody thinks of in-laws and everything else. They produce the greatest grandchildren. Have I shown you my grandchildren's pictures? They are the greatest. We've got 6 total. And they're the greatest people. I know that it's a lot easier to have a father, for a father to have a child than for a child to come along and say, I want you to be my father. I want you to pick me to be your child. If there had not have been another person in this world and you could have picked anybody else, would you pick me? This is what they want to know. Or would you go pick somebody else that's prettier, that smells better, and that looks better, and smarter? Is that how you'd pick them? Dr. Hall was right when he said, go pick a good daddy. And I'm going to say, go pick a good child. Zebedee was a real father. He built something special into those children of his, those two boys, that would help them. And he built it in because he was a man of the water. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 things, maybe 5, as fast as I can. Number 1, this is what he built into those children. Before they ever said yes to Jesus Christ, I think Jesus recognized it. He built faith into those boys. When you're on the pond or the lake or the river, you've got to have faith that the fish are going to bite. You've got to believe that this is the day and this is the place and this is your fishing hole. And when they say, I don't think they're going to bite, you've got to say, you've got to be right now. Believe that this is the day. It's the right place. You've got to believe that they're going to go for the bait that you've got, that they're going to be running in schools so that they'll hit your net. And you've got to pray that prayer and say, little fishes in the brook, come on, bite old John and James's hook. You see, you got to believe that they'll be biting before you even leave. Zebedee taught his boys that faith is not only essential when you catch fish, but faith is essential in the ministry. You got to believe that you can do all things through Jesus Christ. You've got to believe that with Christ, all things are possible and that God is not going to fail you. You've got to believe that the battle is not yours, but the battle belongs to God. You've got to believe that you didn't come into this world to be a failure. You came into this world to be an ultimate success. And that's what Zebedee taught his 2 boys, James and John. And that's why they went long, and they're still naming them names today after those 2 boys. They'd hardly ever name anybody Judas and Herod, but they named them after James and John. He teaches us faith. That's what a good father will do, to believe Jesus Christ and to believe he's going to carry you through. The second thing that Zebedee taught his children was for them to be industrious. Now there's one, you got to learn how not to waste. You'd say, well, I just believe in throwing it right and throwing it left. You won't ever have anything either. Even the ants I read this morning in the book of Proverbs, the ants, as small as they are, know how to save for the wintertime. You've got to learn to be smart and industrious. You've got to learn to save something. You say, how? I can't save anything, man. I don't have enough money to save anything. Listen, I said, you've got to save something. Now you say, you show me how and then I'll do it. Is it a deal, everybody? Say it. Amen. I'm going to make it right now, and I'm going to let you, it's going to depend on what you'll do if you've got the guts to do it. I want you to find a meal that you don't like. From the looks of it, we like most meals today. Me first, okay? But I'm going to get you to find one that you really don't think is the greatest meal in the world. You've been there. The chicken was like rubber. The beef was heavy. They made the gravy with too much salt. And you said, man, I can go without this. I can go back home and eat a bologna sandwich and not get as much salt as I'd get in this stuff. They just dumped the whole box on it just like that. You can think of a bowl of soup, okay? You're at the restaurant. You're forced to go to the restaurant. You say, we're forced to go to the restaurant. You're forced, yeah, I heard that. But you're forced to go to the restaurant with somebody. You know that you're paying. They say, you want soup or salad? You say, I want none. How much is that on my bill? Does it come on the bill? No, it doesn't. The soup is $3.25, $3.50. The salad is $4.25, $4.50, something like that, or $5. You say, listen, I want you to deduct it from my meal. I'm going to deduct it myself. And I know you think this is economics 101. I guess it is. But you said you didn't have anything. You'd have found a way to pay that bill. Amen, anybody? I didn't hear an amen. Come on, let me hear a bigger one than that. And what you're going to do, you're going to go home now and you're going to take it out of that. You're going to, don't you dare chicken out on me. You said you'd do it. You pull out 1, 2, 3. You're going to buy the soup this week. You're going to save that $3.50. You're going to put it away until you get another one just like it. You're going to put it somewhere where it'll grow. You're going to put it somewhere because beginning is half done. You're going to put it somewhere. Everybody say somewhere. Come on. I didn't hear you. Say somewhere. Put it somewhere where it'll grow. Don't say, well, I don't have but $3.50. Oh, that's just that money I didn't buy that salad with. I can throw. Don't you throw that money away. You save it. Put it in a jar. Put it in a vase. Till you get enough, you make your checking account. You make a savings account. Carry it down and get somebody to invest it for you. And you're going to do it. And one day, if you'll start doing that, kids, listen, dads, if you'll start doing that when you're 30 years old, since we don't have another dad under 30 here, if you'll start doing it at 30, by the time you get to 50, you'll be a millionaire. You'd say, John, you're kidding. I'm not kidding you. Isn't that true, Buck? Look, no, I'm just kidding. Look, you think about it. The great things in life is not what you look for. It's the little foxes that spoil the vines, and it's the little things that you save that count the most. I don't want to hear you say it anymore. Don't come to me and say, I don't have anything. You bought that salad for $4.50. Save the money on that salad. It's not any good for you anyway. Too much mayonnaise on it. Too much 1001 or whatever, 1,000 Island on it. Don't eat it. Take it home and save it. You say, do it like that? You see, you got to be industrious. This man taught them to be industrious. He taught them how to work. He taught them to get out early and go for it. Has any father ever told your children to go early to a job? Mine did. I went to the Colonial store the first thing. I had that little black bow tie and everything. Here's what the man said. The man said, how do you like Johnny? How'd he do? He said, he's all right. He said, but he'd be just like all the rest of these bums around here before long. They came and told me what the man said. I said, I'll show him. I will not. I will not be like that. And later on, I looked forward to going to work and going to school until 1 o'clock and going to work and working to 6 and 7 and 8 and 8:30 at night. I thought about it. I said, Lord, you taught me that. And it was 70-some cents an hour. And then they gave me a raise. And was I ever rich? He gave me a raise to 98 cents. I remember my first raise. You know you do. And I made it a practice with the help of Daddy. He said, now, son, when you go to work, don't you be to work just on time. I said, Daddy, but they got a thing you punch the card. You can't go early. He said, you go early. You be the first one to go. If you're supposed to be there at 1:30, you go there at 1:15. I said, yes, sir. When am I leaving? He said, you be the last to leave. Daddy, he's going to think I'm hanging around for a reason to make a heist on the store or something. You know he isn't. You say, Mr. Ayers, is there anything else I can do? He said, son, you can own the place if you'll do that. Go to work on it. A lot of us don't do it. We say, here you go, yes, you little pretty little boy. Listen, work. Blessed is a man who's found his life's work, Carlyle said. Thomas in England, a Victorian. That's the way you do it. I said, Daddy, what if, he said, you punch the card and then you stay around and say, is there anything else you can do? And so for 2 years I did that, or 3, selling watermelons, doing anything he wanted. It didn't matter. And I was the first to get there and the last one to leave. And when I got ready to leave, they walked up to me and they said, we've chosen one boy to go to the Spartans of Michigan State. We wanted to be you. I'm nobody. But I said I would do it. And I'm deeply flattered. But I heard another siren go off. I want to go pastor a church where I won't have to work very much. I'm only kidding. The girl said last night when I got to the Green Valley, or Business Green, or whatever it is over there, green something, where Pat lay there and she had died. And Terry looked at me and she said, you have a weekend? You ever have a weekend when it don't get up? Not many. If you're in this town, there's something that's going to come up. Expect it. It'll come up. But that's what I'm here for. That's what you're here for. You're here to work. He taught them to be industrious. Say industrious, somebody. Come on. The third thing he did, he taught those boys to have courage. He knew what the Sea of Galilee was like. He knew that 1 minute it'd be calm and peaceful and placid. And then the next minute, coming down from the Judean hills, this big wind would come down and they would hit it and swirl it, and you'd be going bad, quick. It's been fair for me immediately. Within 5 minutes, a rain cloud would come up and a thunderstorm would come up. It's amazing. We've had the greatest times on the Sea of Galilee. He taught them how to have courage. If you get to the storm, go right into the midst of the storm. Don't be afraid of the dark. Don't be afraid of rain. Don't be afraid of lightning. Right now, actually, I know I'm crazy. Do not write it up. Some of you have already written it up, and that just stops with the staff. I know I'm crazy, but look, I love a storm. But I don't pray any on you all. I pray that they'll go the other way. I love the lightning. I love the wind. I love the rain. You say, you're crazy. I thought you were crazy. I love them. I love them because the old man, my daddy said, he said, listen, fight against the storm. It's the storms in life that make you what you are. You can't have every day with rosebuds and roses scattered out there. You got to have the winds of life and the storms and the trials of life that'll make you what you are. We get there through the hard places. Anybody understand that? Is there anybody else can clap your hands and say, I remember that? Look, storms, you got to take courage. You take courage, you can do anything. Courage. One of my favorite guys that I love the most is Winston Churchill. He didn't come from very much. You say, I thought he did. No, he didn't. He came from a father who was like a Wall Street man, but he couldn't do anything else, and he never affirmed him at all. He said, Winston's never going to amount to anything. He said, that boy can't even talk. He's dumb. He's stupid. That's what they said about his boy. And really, he had dyslexia. And they didn't know how to do it then. They just said, you're dumb. Dummy, 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 dummy. His mama had him in a cloakroom. She couldn't stand him. But I read about him, and I liked him. You say, what'd you like about him? I loved his persistence. I loved his courage. This man was a courageous man, but he didn't look courageous so that he could be picked down on the baseball team. In school, he didn't look very promising. He didn't look like he had anything that would ever produce any heroic men to the country. To the contrary, he was ridiculed. He was misused by friends and family, not only daddy and mama. He was courageous in politics. He didn't mind changing from one party to another and then back to the other for the sake of the people and his nation. He loved his nation. Not his party, he loved his nation. He lost it sometimes for prime minister and won it another time. He had principles that chastened the people of England when they wouldn't do it right. And one night, he went on a little hiatus out in the country to a little ancient little old house that was real quaint and nice. And while he was there, a boiler blew up and caught on fire. They came down, they said, everybody screaming and screeching. They took everybody and walked them all out. Got them out of the house, and they're all standing out there in their 90s and everything. They're standing there saying, oh boy, what are we going to do? What are we going to lose in everything? Except our lives. He walked everybody out except one. And that was Winston. Winston didn't walk out. Winston went up. Winston went straight up on top of the building. Winston was waiting for the fire truck to come. This is what his friend Eddie Marsh told about it. He said, Winston went up on the top of the building. This man commandeered everything with a helmet on. He got that and had that helmet, and he was leading all the pack to put that fire out. They got a little fire engine from a nearby town and brought it in, and he was telling one, go do this and go do that and go do this. This man took courage. It didn't make him fear up on the rooftop. And finally, their efforts were lost. And the quaint little house that had stood for centuries and entertained a lot of people was down in cinders to the ground. And they said people forgot the tragedy of that hour, but they never forgot the vision of the little pudgy man, Churchill, standing on the roof of that burning house, dressed only in a bathrobe and a fire helmet on. They said they never could forget that. It was courage. You got to have courage, you understand. You're going to need it when you get out in this world. It's not going to come to you. It's not going to follow you. You've got to understand it. You have courage to stand so that you can say, nothing will stop me. Daddy taught them to have courage in the midst of the storm. And then, number 4, he taught them patience. Didn't bite, Daddy. Stay with it, son. Don't catch any, Daddy. Even Jesus knew that. Cast your net on the other side. Daddy said, You've got to have patience. You can't just go and say, little fishes in the brook, come on, bite old James's hook. You can't do that. They won't come in that quick. You've got to sit there for a long time. Our daughter was fishing at Big Rock just recently, last weekend. Her brother-in-law's child, a young girl, was fishing, and they were having the marlin. You all know where that is, in Atlantic, out here, Atlantic Beach, on Morehead City. The young teen had her hook in the water, baited just right, wind blowing all around, and all of a sudden a 500-pound marlin hit it, a blue marlin. Wow. She fought it for 1 hour almost and brought that baby in. She says, I've got the thousands and thousands of dollars that's coming in. And will you believe it? Somebody else made her go into second place. But it took her an hour to bring him in, and it took not being afraid, and it took patience to say, I'll wait until the marlin. You can't just roll it in and say, that's it. You got to stick with him. It took her days and days and days before the marlin hit. It took persistence. Second, or next, it took persistence. As someone has said, that of all the things in life that are great, persistence is it. Calvin Coolidge said, a late president, nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Listen, genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. You know what they're doing? They're teaching. We got guys teaching people how to raise churches and grow churches, and they've never even pastored a church. What are you going to do? I'll teach. Teach what? I ask. Persistence and determination, Coolidge said, alone are omnipotent. And a study of the 400 greatest people in the world that ever lived, from Mahatma Gandhi to Martin Luther King to Louis Pasteur to all of these others, the greatest of the 400 people were all with some kind of emotional, mental, or physical handicap, or something had happened to them in their sociological background. But yet they became the greatest people who ever lived. Your excuse is not really great. You can do it. But this man taught his sons to have persistence. Stay at it. Don't ever give up. Never give up. You're going to win it. He taught them discernment. The sixth thing. He taught them how to discern the skies. My dad taught me that. He taught me how to look up and see at night whether it's going to snow and in the daytime. He taught me how to know when hot weather or cold weather was coming. He taught me trees. Did your dad ever teach you trees? You can put trees up against me like this and I can smell them and tell you what it is. I can look at the bark. I'm not bragging, it's just fact, Jack. Look, I can look at the bark and tell you what kind of tree it is. A number of them. I learned that from my dad. You put many more up against him and he could do it blindfolded. The man knew everything. I see that in life now. He taught me how to kill a chicken. He taught me how to clean a chicken. 10 at one time, old hens, and not to kill the one with the eggs in them. He taught me how. The first one I killed had all the eggs in it. He said, son, you'll kill your business like this. It's like choosing the hen that has the golden egg in it. You can't do it. I said, Dad, how'd you do it? He taught me how. I'll share it with you sometime, but not now. He taught me how, and I never made a mistake after that. I'd killed 10 at one time to take to the market, and I never made a mistake after that. He told me about the cock comb on the old hen. They do have a shorter cock comb. He taught me about the eyes, what they look. You ought to hear it. And by the way, he said after he got through teaching me that, he said, choose your women the same way. It really worked, that second one, I'm telling you right now. He taught them discernment. And last, he taught them action. Go for it. Don't wait for anybody to tell you. Now, here's what we got in the world today. We got two kinds of people. I'm going to make them up for you. This is what I write in letters and everything. If you ever got a letter from me, you probably got it. There are two kinds of letters, two kinds of people in this world. Number one, there are the people who see needs, and they say, hey, Frank, Mary, go over there and meet that need. Go get it. Then the other kind of person is the people who see needs, and instead of saying, you go do it, they say, follow me and we're going to go do it together. My friend, they are the leaders, okay? They are the leaders in this world today. It's the ones who don't say, you just go and do it. It's the ones who say, if you'll follow me, we'll do it together. Here's about my dad. Okay, I won't ever tell you much about my dad anymore. The Depression was on. I was born a long time afterwards, believe me. You'd have to be 52, and I mean, even at that time, the times were tough. But before I was ever hatched, Daddy went down and got a job with the WPA. That was some work program to give you some money so the families wouldn't starve. The government started it, and under Roosevelt. And all the men were lined up down there with shovels, and the men just standing around, and the boss was over yonder going that way. And when he came back, and they were standing around, when he came back, all the men were lined up down this ditch, digging and shoveling. He said, who started these men to work? Nobody moved. He said to one, he said, I ask you, who started these men to work? He said, it was a guy over there named Hedgepeth. He put them all by these ditches and told them to start working. He said, Hedgepeth, come here a minute. You see, I wouldn't have told you this when I was young. I'd have been ashamed of it. He said, why'd you start these men to work? He said, well, sir, I saw them standing here and they had to shovel and just wasting time. And I said, I see what needs to be done. Let's get there and let's cover this ditch up. We can do it. Come on. He said, Hedgepeth, you just got promoted. You're the foreman of this outfit. Now listen, don't you let anything take that place of that action. Go do it. Do it like Longfellow said. Let us then be up and doing in a psalm of life, with a heart for any fate, still achieving, still pursuing, learn to labor and to wait. You got to work for it. That's it. All right. On your feet, everybody. I want to pray a prayer first. You can't go yet unless you absolutely have to, okay? I understand that. If you can do anything you want to in this place, okay? But you can't get the thing wet. But you got to get something very important from me, okay? You cry for them and they'll give them to you if they're right there. That's what I'm saying. Call me back and I'll give you one, okay? But before I give it to you, I want to make a deal. I want to ask you, how many of you can say, Pastor, I want to be what God wants me to be? I pray while your hand is up, God, that you would make us into the fathers that you want us to be and into the children that you want us to be, and let us be achievers. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.